Happy New Year, everyone. It's 2021, and what better way to kick things off than by reminiscing 2020, and for this video, talking about gaming's greatest triumphs of 2020. In the next video, I'll talk about some of the blunders and embarrassments surrounding gaming, but as far as triumphs go, I have 10 specific events or news or happenings in 2020 that kind of stuck out to me, and this is stuff that I've covered. Obviously, there's other stuff out there that you guys might think of that I won't mention in this video, but, you know, this is just stuff that I really engaged with. Starting with number 10, the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. This is, without question, one of the greatest comebacks I've seen. The initial reception surrounding the movie was overwhelmingly negative because of the awful design that they came up with for Sonic. The guy just looked like the stuff of nightmares. I'm all about, you know, creative people stretching their creative muscles and like trying something different, but the Sonic design was just plain and simply wrong. It was just uncomfortable to look at. And so the gaming community really expressed their discontent at the Sonic design, and they actually listened, they fixed it, and then when the movie came out, it turned out to not just be like movie with a fixed Sonic design. It turned out to be pretty decent, a pretty fun movie that was better than I think a lot of people were expecting, and so all around the Sonic movie was a success. It broke records when it comes to video game movies, and people are looking forward to the sequel. And while this isn't technically a video game, it is a video game related thing. It's good to see that some video game movies are getting a good rep, so gotta give it a thumbs up. For number 9, we have Star Wars Squadrons. Mainly because this is EA we're talking about, and they released a $40 game. This was more of a bare bones experience compared to everything else, and they adjusted the price accordingly. There's no microtransactions, no loot boxes, no extraneous forms of monetization. It was just this game that they put out that was actually just a video game. And then beyond that, EA took it a step further by actually allowing the developers to release free content for this game that isn't a live service. And the reason it's so low on the list is because this shouldn't be something that should shock people. This should be the norm, the rule, not the exception. But the fact that this actually did happen is kind of a miracle within itself, that this came from EA. And it's worth commending, and I would just love it if EA would do more stuff like this throughout all of their projects. This is just kind of like a once-in-a-blue-moon thing, but it's still worth celebrating that something consumer-friendly actually happened when it comes to Star Wars. This brings us to number 8. This is also Star Wars related. Jedi Fallen Order sold 8 million copies in 1.5 months. And the reason this is important is that EA has touted time and again how people don't enjoy single-player games like they used to. They even once said that the whole 25-hour experience that you finish and you're done, like that stuff is finished. EA literally used the word finished to describe those types of linear, shorter, 24-hour experiences. Here comes Jedi Fallen Order and completely disproves them. EA kind of play themselves with Jedi Fallen Order, but hopefully this means that with proof out there that if you just make a good, compelling single-player experience, they will sell a boatload, EA will do more of this stuff. It's all just, I don't know, wishful thinking. They're obviously still going to be scummy with like EA Sports stuff, but the hope is that they understand that people do want linear experiences. Not everything has to be an infinite live service. Some people like that a game has a beginning, middle, and end. And Jedi Fallen Order offered that experience. It was great overall. And so it went on to sell 8 million units in 1.5 months, which is freaking fantastic. So, do you see the picture here, EA? Next up, number 7, Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. It's weird to bring up Witcher 3 after 5 years since launch. The game launched in 2015, but Witcher arguably made a bigger splash in 2020 than it did when it launched. The peak number of players, of concurrent players, actually went higher in 2020 than it did when the game first launched because the Witcher TV show came out. That got great critical acclaim. A lot of people love the show. That fueled the books, and Witcher 3 sales skyrocketed. And when CD Projekt had goodwill, a lot of people celebrated this because Witcher 3 was just this incredible experience and was very consumer friendly in the business model and the way content was doled out. The staying power of that game is just incredible. The fact that it continues to sell so many copies every year and to see this level of resurgence speaks to the quality of the game, the way positive word has spread about the title and how that was further fueled by the success of the show. Next up, number 6, the announcement of God of War Ragnarok and that it's coming in 2021 this year, ladies and gentlemen. So obviously this game isn't out, but for me, God of War was game of the generation. Straight up, God of War PS4 is the game that had the most profound impact on me during the PS4 era. And to hear that Ragnarok is coming out sooner than most people anticipated. I thought it was going to be at least 2022, maybe 2023, but to hear that it's coming out in 2021, I'm over the moon. And given what the first game established, I'm so hyped for this next entry. And you add that on top of Ratchet & Clank and Horizon Forbidden West and all of these games that are coming out for PS5 this year, you know, it's looking like a pretty strong lineup, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed that God of War Ragnarok will deliver, and I'm excited to see how it leverages the capabilities of the PS5 with the extra graphical prowess and the SSD architecture that, you know, we've seen glimpses of with like Spider-Man Miles Morales and how there's basically no loading times on the PS5 version of that. It'll be interesting to see like what new gameplay paradigms are implemented in God of War. Which brings us to number 5, Black Myth Wukong. So this is a game that comes from ex-Tencent developers who founded their own studio. If I recall, the studio was founded in 2014. They focused a lot on mobile games, but then in 2017, they wanted to tackle something AAA, something industry standard setting, and so they started pursuing this Black Myth Wukong title, the story of the Monkey King, essentially. And when they released that trailer, it took the world by a storm. People were blown away by what they were seeing here. It seems to have the epicness of God of War, the scale is immense, and then you've got sort of the more nuanced elements of maybe like a Souls-like combat, and then there's a unique implementation of the Monkey King's ability to transform into all of these different forms, and that's something that's going to be deeply integrated into the game. The boss battles in this game so far, from what we've seen, look amazing, and then after the trailer released, the head of this game actually apologized for the state of the game and how, like, you know, he would do this better and that better, and he took a very humble approach and showed the trailer for what the game state was. So you do see some frame rate dips, you do see some elements that obviously could be improved, but he just showed us the game. And so it feels like an honest approach to marketing, and through that trailer, the team is hoping to hire a bunch of people, draw in a lot of talent to bring this vision to life. Obviously, only time will tell if this game lives up to the excitement, but it's great to see this studio flexing its creative and artistic and technical muscles, and I wish it nothing but the best. Number 4, HalfLife Alyx. So VR before HalfLife Alyx was seen as a niche product that showed some potential of interesting ideas, but a lot of those ideas were never fully fleshed out. A lot of the VR experiences felt more like short tech demos, but then in comes HalfLife Alyx, showing what you can accomplish with VR when you have a dedicated team, really pushing the boundaries of the gameplay and what you can accomplish, and it is straight up a AAA VR game. It's about 15 hours long, but it looks gorgeous. The game really takes advantage of VR and does a great job of tailoring the gameplay to the very different way input works through VR. The interactivity with just objects around the world and the story and the set pieces, it really brought attention to VR on an unprecedented level, because HalfLife Alyx kind of proves that, yes, hardcore, well-done VR gaming experiences are 100% possible, and it'll be interesting to see how other developers will push the boundary and try to outdo HalfLife Alyx in its graphical, artistic, and gameplay fidelity. It was just a phenomenal experience all around. That was a good game in its own right, a fantastic game in its own right, but also pushed the boundaries of a new form of gaming that is still coming into its own. So I would call HalfLife Alyx quite the triumph. Number 3, the launch of next-gen consoles. Many wondered if the launch of the new generation was going to get delayed because of the pandemic, but the company somehow managed to pull through. They've released Series X, Series S, and PS5 physical and digital editions, and both consoles overall, people have been really happy about. Obviously, there's the scalpers that have been kind of marring the situation, and there are some kinks to work out with both consoles. It's not perfect, but We have officially kickstarted the new generation. PS5 had some great launch titles. Xbox Series X, while still lacking in the first-party exclusives, it launched with really great features like Game Pass, which kind of gives you access to a vast library of games for a very minimal price point per month. And then features like Quick Resume and the faster loading times across both Xbox and PlayStation, and just the announcements that have come out from both companies about some of the games that they're working on, or companies that they're acquiring, like Microsoft acquiring Bethesda, you know? It does create a sense of excitement and rejuvenation. A new generation of consoles happens once every 5 to 7 years, and so it's cool to be able to kind of live through this moment and be excited about what's next for gaming, because, you know, it still feels like this industry is very young. There's just so much potential to move the technology and creativity forward. I do feel like we're still currently in this like cross-generational period where games are coming out for both last gen and current gen, but there will eventually be a point where games are going to be made strictly for the current gen consoles, and it'll be interesting to see what developers can come up with, especially with how the implementation of SSD and how that's universal, how that's touted to be a really big game changer from a game design standpoint, from a developer standpoint. Just exciting stuff all around, and I just hope that they'll be able to restock these consoles enough to meet the high demand right now, and hopefully retailers and Sony and Microsoft will find ways to mitigate the scalping situation. For number 2, I want to celebrate indie games, because the indie scene has done work this year. Hades, which has won accolades just across the world and has won a number of Game of the Year awards. I believe it was IGN's Game of the Year, for example, and that's pretty much the biggest gaming outlet out there. And if it didn't win Game of the Year, it was at the very least nominated. It sold really well. The acclaim from players has been incredible. Then there's Fall Guys, Among Us, Phasmophobia. These are games that went viral. Very small team, but the reason games like these can shine is because you can really feel that it's just, there's a purity to indie games. It's all about the creativity, it's all about the passion, and they kind of dispense with the corporate stuff that often gets in the way of a game's potential. So all of these games, you know, like Among Us was found later, you know, came out in 2018, and it struggled, but eventually it found its own, it found its own identity, and once it picked up, it really picked up. And it's the very fact that I think there isn't a corporate element seeping in and kind of trying to manipulate how these games are made or what these games are. That's what's allowed these games to really shine, to be so fun and successful. And so I want to keep celebrating indie games and what they can bring to the table. They just bring something that corporately created games simply cannot. Which finally brings us to number 1. For me, the greatest gaming triumph of 2020 was Ghost of Tsushima across the board. The game itself, when it launched, was met with critical acclaim, and the user score on Metacritic is some of the highest ever. I beat the game myself, I reviewed it. If you saw the video review, you'll know that I absolutely love the experience. The story has a really good pacing and has some emotional peaks. When it comes to gameplay, the combat is just so fluid and badass, just looks incredible, feels incredible, and really kind of gives you that samurai gameplay experience, the grounded samurai gameplay experience. The scenery of this game is just immaculate. Just the way the world always feels like it's flowing and moving. The flora and fauna and overall art style just creates a mesmerizing visual experience. It's just a fantastic game across the board. Beyond that, though, you've got a game with really honest marketing. A lot of what was seen in gameplay footage and whatnot pretty much turned out to be exactly what you got in the game. And then beyond that, after the game's launch, there came the post-launch content, the free multiplayer mode, the New Game Plus that also added extra items and rewards that you could earn, all at no additional cost. And the multiplayer mode is actually really good. It's really fun. It's really excellent. The gameplay of this game works really well in a co-op environment, and there are really great rewards that the game offers. The progression system flows really well. So it's just one of those things that's really fun to keep going back to. For me, it is the game of the year of 2020. You know, it was close between Hades and Ghost of Tsushima, but to me, Ghost of Tsushima really is it was a special experience, and everything about this game was right. The lead up to the launch, the marketing, the content, the quality of the game, the artistic merit, No microtransactions, no loot boxes, just a great, fun, compelling, gorgeous video game, and that's what we need more of. So that, ladies and gentlemen, concludes my personal top 10 greatest gaming triumphs of 2020. Again, I know there's a bunch of other triumphs out there that I may not have listed, so help me out. Let me know in the comments below what you think were some of the greatest triumphs in gaming throughout 2020. Thank you for tuning in. Look forward to additional videos, and I cannot wait to see what 2021 holds for this community, this channel. Just wanted to say thank you guys for an amazing 2020. And yeah, with that, to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.